Oh, you reckon you could ride into Winnemucca's camp and talk with him?
Dan Blocker was one of television's most beloved stars, famous for playing the kind-hearted Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza. There was one co-star he simply could not get along with, and their tension grew over the years of filming, creating one of the most talked-about conflicts in TV history. Join us as we uncover the full story behind the scenes. Before the spotlight, Dan Blocker was shaped long before Hollywood ever noticed him, and understanding his early life helps explain why conflict later came so naturally to him when his values were challenged. He was born and raised in rural Texas, where life demanded hard work and personal responsibility from an early age. In small Texas towns, reputation mattered, and people were expected to treat each other fairly because everyone depended on one another. Blocker grew up believing that effort, honesty, and loyalty were not optional traits, but basic requirements of being a decent person. This environment laid the foundation for the strong moral code he carried for the rest of his life. His parents owned a small general store, which became one of his earliest classrooms. Working there taught him how to deal with all kinds of people and how important fairness was in daily life. Customers remembered how they were treated, and Blocker learned that respect was earned by consistency and kindness, not by status. Even as a young man, he stood out physically, already tall and broad-shouldered, yet people often described him as gentle and patient. He had a calm presence and an ability to make others feel comfortable, a combination that stayed with him well into adulthood. Discipline became even more central to Blocker's character during his time at Texas Military Institute. The structured environment reinforced the importance of order, cooperation, and respect for leadership. These lessons deepened during his service in the Korean War, where he served as an infantry sergeant. Military life taught him that teams only function when everyone pulls in the same direction. Ego, constant criticism, or refusal to cooperate could put lives at risk. As a result, Blocker developed little tolerance for behavior that disrupted group harmony or disrespected shared effort. After returning home, Blocker became a teacher, instructing students in literature and history. Teaching was not just a job to him, it was a responsibility. He believed that educators, like soldiers, had a duty to set an example and treat others with fairness and patience. This mindset followed him into acting. For Blocker, a workplace was a moral space where respect, teamwork, and shared purpose mattered deeply. And those beliefs would soon be tested in ways he never expected. Hoss Cartwright's Code. To Dan Blocker, Bonanza was never just another television job. It was something he felt deeply connected to, both personally and morally. His character, Eric Hoss Cartwright, reflected many of Blocker's own values and instincts. Hoss was not the loudest or the most dominant member of the Cartwright family, but he was often the one who brought calm to tense situations. He listened, offered understanding, and helped smooth over conflicts between his brothers. Blocker saw this emotional role as essential, and he took it seriously. He felt protective of Hoss's goodness because it represented the kind of man he believed people should strive to be. Hoss was kind without being weak and strong without being cruel, and Blocker worked hard to keep that balance honest and believable. Audiences responded to this sincerity, not because Hoss was flashy or fearless, but because he felt real and trustworthy. Blocker also believed that Bonanza served a larger purpose. At a time when television reached millions of American homes every week, he saw the show as a source of positive influence. He felt that wholesome storytelling mattered, especially for families watching together. The Cartwrights faced problems, but they handled them with fairness, respect, and a clear sense of right and wrong. Blocker believed this kind of storytelling had value beyond entertainment. Rather than looking down on the show for its popularity, he was grateful for it. He understood that commercial success meant people were connecting with the message. To him, that was something to appreciate, not criticize. Loyalty was another core reason Blocker took the series personally. He believed that once you committed to a project, you owed respect to everyone involved. That included fellow actors, writers, crew members, and the audience. Blocker felt strongly that criticism, if necessary, should stay behind closed doors. Public complaints, in his view, disrespected the hard work of others. He often said that the set was like a family, and families handled problems internally. For Blocker, professionalism meant showing up, doing your best, and supporting the team. And not everyone on the set shared that same belief. Tension arrives. When Pernell Roberts joined Bonanza, he brought a very different energy to the set than Dan Blocker. Roberts was highly educated, deeply thoughtful, and trained in classical theater. He had a strong academic background and approached acting as an intellectual craft. He believed that stories should ask hard questions and challenge the audience to think about society, politics, and personal responsibility. From the beginning, Roberts wanted his work to feel meaningful and layered, and he often searched for depth in every role he accepted. Although Bonanza made him famous, Roberts was never fully comfortable with the Western genre. He felt that many Westerns relied too heavily on simple good versus evil plots and predictable endings. While audiences loved these familiar patterns, Roberts found them limiting. He wanted stories that reflected real social struggles and moral complexity. Over time, this discomfort grew stronger, especially as the show became more popular and settled into a formula that viewers expected and enjoyed. Roberts' dissatisfaction with Bonanza became more visible as the seasons went on. He openly criticized what he saw as shallow scripts and repetitive storylines. On set, he sometimes questioned dialogue and refused to rehearse lines he felt were poorly written. He also voiced his concerns in interviews, expressing frustration that the show did not evolve in the direction he hoped. Despite the fame, steady income, and loyal fan base, Roberts felt creatively trapped. Success did not bring him fulfillment, and that disconnect made his frustration sharper. This attitude quickly became the seed of conflict between Roberts and Blocker. To Blocker, Roberts' constant criticism felt ungrateful. Blocker had deep respect for the show and the people who worked on it, and he believed that Bonanza had given them all a rare opportunity. He saw public complaints as a dismissal of the writers, crew, and even the audience who supported the series week after week. Where Roberts saw artistic compromise, Blocker saw a lack of appreciation. At the heart of their tension were two very different ideas of artistic integrity. For Roberts, integrity meant pushing boundaries and refusing to settle for work he believed was beneath his abilities. For Blocker, integrity meant commitment, teamwork, and doing honest work with pride, even if it was simple. These opposing views did not clash loudly at first. The friction began quietly, through small disagreements and unspoken resentment. Over time, those moments added up, and patience on both sides wore thin. What started as a difference in outlook soon became something much harder to ignore. Explosive set battles. As time went on, the tension between Dan Blocker and Pernell Roberts became impossible to ignore on the set of Bonanza. What had started as a quiet disagreement slowly turned into a daily strain that everyone could feel. Cast and crew members learned to watch Roberts' moods closely, adjusting their behavior depending on how he arrived on set each day. Some days were calm, while others were tense and unpredictable. This created an atmosphere where people felt they had to be careful with their words, unsure of what might trigger another complaint or confrontation. Rehearsals were often disrupted by Roberts questioning lines or refusing to perform scenes he felt were poorly written. These moments caused delays and strained the production schedule, placing added pressure on everyone involved. While many cast members found the behavior frustrating, Blocker felt especially burdened by it. Because of his natural calm and senior presence, he often found himself acting as an unofficial mediator. He tried to smooth things over, encourage cooperation, and keep the peace. But doing so became harder as Roberts' dissatisfaction grew more intense and more frequent. The situation worsened when Roberts began airing his grievances publicly. He did not limit his criticism to private discussions with writers or producers. Instead, he sometimes voiced his dissatisfaction in front of visitors, reporters, or people not directly involved in the show. To Blocker, this crossed a serious line. He believed strongly that public criticism hurt morale and disrespected the hard work of the cast and crew. Each complaint made in front of outsiders felt to him like a personal betrayal of the team. As the behavior continued, Blocker found it increasingly difficult to excuse or defend Roberts. At first, he tried to be understanding, telling himself that creative frustration was part of the business. Over time, however, patience turned into resentment. Blocker felt that no matter how many chances Roberts was given, he refused to show basic respect for the people around him. The repeated disruptions and public complaints began to wear on Blocker emotionally, even though he rarely showed it openly. Their disagreements eventually led to heated verbal confrontations. These clashes were not physical, but they were intense. The two men argued about the purpose of the show, the responsibility of actors, and what it meant to be professional. Blocker never escalated the situation physically, not because he lacked strength, but because he believed violence would undermine his own principles. He valued self-control and dignity, even when he was deeply angry. That restraint, however, came at a cost. Blocker kept his resentment inside, allowing it to build over time. While he remained friendly with most of the cast, the strain of dealing with constant conflict left him exhausted and disappointed. The breaking point was no longer far away, and soon, a major change would shift everything on the Bonanza set. Caught in the middle, Michael Landon occupied a unique position on the set of Bonanza. As the youngest of the main cast, he had a close and affectionate bond with Dan Blocker, who often treated him like a younger brother. Their relationship was built on trust, humor, and mutual respect. Blocker admired Landon's work ethic and creativity, while Landon valued Blocker's steadiness and emotional warmth. This closeness gave Landon a front-row view of the growing tension between Blocker and Pernell Roberts. At the same time, Landon also had to navigate Roberts's intensity. He understood that Roberts was deeply serious about acting and cared strongly about the quality of the material. Landon listened when Roberts expressed frustration, even when he didn't agree. Rather than taking sides openly, Landon often tried to keep conversations calm and focused on the work at hand. Over time, he became an informal buffer on set, easing tensions and helping communication continue when tempers ran high. He knew that if conflicts escalated too far, they could damage the entire production. Landon later recalled how hard Blocker worked to stay patient during these years. Blocker rarely raised his voice and often tried to diffuse arguments before they grew heated. According to Landon, Blocker genuinely wanted everyone to get along and believed problems could be solved through respect and cooperation. Even when Roberts criticized scripts or challenged decisions, Blocker often tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Landon remembered moments when Blocker would step away rather than argue, choosing silence over confrontation in order to keep the peace. However, Landon also observed that Roberts had a way of pushing people past their limits. His constant dissatisfaction, sharp comments, and refusal to hide his displeasure wore down even the most patient individuals. While some cast members simply avoided him, Blocker felt responsible for maintaining harmony. This sense of duty placed extra emotional weight on him. Landon could see the toll it took, even when Blocker tried to mask it with humor or kindness. The cost of this prolonged emotional restraint was high. Blocker carried his frustration quietly, rarely venting or seeking sympathy. Landon later reflected that this inner strain made Blocker tired in ways people did not always notice. The conflict was not just about creative differences. It was about values, respect, and gratitude. Watching Blocker absorb so much tension without lashing out left a strong impression on Landon, who came to understand how deeply the situation affected his friend. From Landon's perspective, the conflict was painful because it never needed to become so severe. He believed that with a little more understanding on both sides, much of the tension could have been avoided. Instead, the divide grew wider, leaving lasting emotional marks on everyone involved. And soon, that tension would finally reach a turning point. Departure sparks relief. By 1965, Pernell Roberts' creative dissatisfaction with Bonanza had reached a breaking point. After years of voicing concerns about the show's direction, he made the difficult decision to leave the series. Roberts felt that staying any longer would only deepen his frustration and limit his growth as an actor. He wanted to return to the theater, where he believed stories allowed for deeper meaning and stronger social messages. He also wished to focus more openly on activism and causes he cared about. His departure marked the end of a long period of tension that had become part of daily life on the set. For many involved with Bonanza, Roberts' exit brought immediate relief. The daily friction that had once filled rehearsals and conversations simply stopped. There were no more tense debates over scripts or disruptions during filming. The atmosphere on set became calmer, and work moved forward more smoothly. For Dan Blocker, however, the moment was complicated. While he felt relieved that the constant conflict was over, he did not view Roberts' departure as a victory. There was no sense of triumph, only the quiet easing of a burden he had carried for years. Blocker openly admitted that he was glad the fighting had ended. He once said, "I never wished him ill, but I was glad to stop fighting." That statement captured his true feelings. He did not hate Roberts, nor did he celebrate his leaving. Instead, Blocker felt sadness that their conflict had never been resolved. He had once admired Roberts' intelligence and talent, and it disappointed him that they could not find common ground. The absence of closure left a lingering sense of regret, even as peace returned. With Roberts gone, the cast of Bonanza changed noticeably. Blocker's natural humor and warmth came back more fully. He laughed more, relaxed more, and seemed lighter in spirit. Cast members noticed the shift and responded in kind. The working environment improved and cooperation felt easier. Conversations focused on the work rather than disagreements, and the sense of unity that Blocker valued so deeply began to return. Still, the experience left emotional residue. Blocker did not forget the years of tension or the lessons they taught him. He became more aware of how unresolved conflict could drain even the most patient person. While he moved forward with renewed energy, part of him carried the disappointment of what might have been if respect and understanding had been mutual. The peace that followed Roberts' departure was real, but it was not complete. The story, however, was far from over. Even after Pernell Roberts left Bonanza, Dan Blocker's feelings about him never settled into a clean or simple place. Time softened some of the sharpest edges, but it did not erase what had happened. Blocker was willing to acknowledge Roberts' intelligence and talent, and he never denied that Roberts was a skilled and thoughtful actor. In later conversations, Blocker spoke of him with a kind of tired respect. He recognized that Roberts wanted more from his work and that his ambitions were real and deeply felt. At the same time, Blocker held firmly to the belief that brilliance did not excuse cruelty. No matter how talented a person might be, Blocker felt there was no justification for behavior that hurt others or disrupted teamwork. What stayed with him was not anger so much as disappointment. He had hoped that someone as intelligent as Roberts would understand the value of respect and cooperation. When that did not happen, it left Blocker feeling let down rather than furious. The sense of misunderstanding weighed more heavily than any desire for confrontation. Blocker often spoke about bitterness as something dangerous, especially in creative work. He believed resentment slowly broke down trust and made true collaboration impossible. For him, acting was never meant to be a solo pursuit. It depended on shared effort, patience, and goodwill. When bitterness entered the room, it changed how people listened to each other and how willing they were to give their best. Blocker once said, "You can't build anything good out of bitterness." And those words reflected hard-earned experience, not theory. This belief was deeply personal because Blocker had lived through the cost of unresolved resentment. He had seen how ongoing tension drained energy from the cast and dimmed the joy of working together. He also felt its impact within himself. Carrying frustration quietly for years taught him how heavy unspoken feelings could become. Even after the set grew calmer, the memory of that strain stayed with him, shaping how he viewed conflict and cooperation in the future. Blocker never sought a public reconciliation, and there was no final conversation that cleared the air. Instead, he accepted that some relationships end without neat endings. He chose to move forward with his values intact, even if the past remained unresolved. That acceptance was not the same as forgiveness, but it allowed him to keep working with honesty and dignity. And as time passed, Blocker began to reflect even more deeply on what truly mattered to him: home versus chaos. While tension simmered on the set of Bonanza, Dan Blocker's private life remained a place of calm and balance. At the center of that peace was his marriage to Dolphia Parker Blocker. She was a steady and grounding presence in his life, offering him emotional support without drama or pressure. Their relationship was built on trust, shared values, and quiet understanding. At home, Blocker did not need to defend his beliefs or manage conflict. He could simply be himself, away from the demands and frustrations of his work life. The Blocker household was free from ego and competition, two forces that caused so much strain on set. Dolphia had no interest in Hollywood status or attention, and that helped keep their home focused on what mattered most to both of them. Family conversations centered on daily life, the children, and simple routines, rather than industry gossip or professional rivalries. This environment gave Blocker a sense of emotional safety. Instead of venting his frustrations publicly or turning conflict into spectacle, he chose to retreat inward, finding relief in privacy and reflection. Blocker also made a conscious choice to place family above industry politics. Unlike many actors of his time, he avoided Hollywood parties and social gatherings whenever possible. He did not enjoy networking or public displays of status, and he saw little value in them. After long days of filming, he preferred to return home rather than attend events where conversation often revolved around ambition and competition. These quiet evenings allowed him to reset emotionally and maintain perspective. This decision insulated Blocker from much of the pressure that came with fame. By staying away from constant industry chatter, he reduced the emotional noise that could easily magnify workplace conflict. He was less tempted to engage in gossip or take sides publicly, which helped him preserve his sense of fairness. Home became a place where the tensions of work could slowly fade, even if they never disappeared completely. Still, the contrast between his peaceful home life and the turmoil on set made the conflict feel sharper at times. Blocker was constantly reminded that cooperation and respect were possible because he lived them every day with his family. That awareness strengthened his resolve, but also deepened his disappointment when those same values were missing at work. And as time went on, those private reflections began to shape how he viewed everything that followed. Unspoken truths. In the years following Pernell Roberts' departure from Bonanza, Dan Blocker reflected on their conflict with a mixture of weariness and clarity. In interviews later in his life, he spoke about Roberts with an understanding that had softened some of the anger he once felt. He acknowledged that Roberts wanted more from his work, that he was searching for creative fulfillment that the show could not provide. Blocker recognized that ambition and talent were not wrong, and he respected Roberts' dedication to his craft. Yet, while his tone had softened, his core beliefs remained unchanged. He continued to insist on the importance of gratitude and respect, principles that had guided him both on and off the set. For Blocker, it was not enough to be talented. One had to treat others fairly and appreciate the opportunities presented to them. One line Blocker, often repeated, captures the essence of his professional philosophy. You don't have to like everybody you work with, but you should at least try to respect them. This statement reflected his view that personal feelings could be separate from professional responsibility. Respect was non-negotiable in his eyes. It was about acknowledging the effort, skill, and humanity of everyone on the team. For Blocker, work was a shared endeavor, and success relied on cooperation and mutual regard. When those basic principles were ignored, it left a mark on him that could not be easily erased. Despite the years that had passed, Blocker felt that he never truly received that respect from Robert. He did not express bitterness in a confrontational way, but the disappointment lingered. It was a quiet, persistent awareness that someone he had admired for intelligence and talent had failed to meet the standard of decency he believed was essential. This unresolved tension remained part of Blocker's understanding of human relationships, shaping how he approached others and how he valued the connections that were genuine and respectful. It was a lesson about the limits of tolerance and the importance of boundaries, even for someone as patient and generous as Blocker. Even as he carried these feelings, Blocker maintained his warmth, humor, and dedication to those who had earned his trust. He never allowed the unresolved conflict to compromise his integrity or the way he treated others. And yet, even with this clarity, the story of his conflicts and loyalties was far from simple. Aftermath without closure. Even after years of working closely together, Dan Blocker and Pernell Roberts never had a final conversation to resolve their differences. By the time of Blocker's untimely death in 1972, the tension between them remained frozen in time. There were no words exchanged to explain, apologize, or reconcile. The disagreements that had marked their years on Bonanza ended not with understanding, but with absence. For Blocker, this lack of closure was not unusual. He had long learned to carry disappointment quietly and to move forward without needing validation from those who disagreed with him. Yet the unresolved conflict lingered in the background, a silent presence that neither man had the chance to confront directly. Much of what remained unsaid between them reflected big differences in philosophy and values. Blocker's approach to work and life was guided by warmth, patience, and gratitude. He valued collaboration, loyalty, and respect above personal ambition. Roberts, on the other hand, operated from a place of intensity and independence. He questioned authority, challenged creative decisions, and pursued dissatisfaction as a path toward personal and artistic growth. These opposing outlooks created a gulf neither could bridge. Understanding that Roberts wanted more did not equal forgiveness, because the behavior that stemmed from his discontent, public criticism, repeated disruptions, and refusal to compromise had left a mark on Blocker's sense of fairness and professionalism. The contrast between them was stark. Blocker carried gratitude for what the show had offered and for the people around him. He believed in maintaining harmony and protecting the collective effort, even when personal disagreements arose. Roberts carried dissatisfaction and defiance, challenging conventions and rejecting compromise to pursue his vision. Both men were deeply committed to their principles, but those principles clashed in ways that made reconciliation impossible. The divide was not about talent or intelligence. It was about core values and the ways each man expressed them. Even after Roberts's departure and years of reflection, Blocker never let go of his belief that respect was non-negotiable. He understood Roberts's intentions, but could not excuse the damage done in the process. In the end, the relationship remained a complicated mix of admiration, disappointment, and unspoken frustration. It stood as a reminder that not all conflicts have tidy endings, and that human complexity often leaves questions unanswered. And even as the cameras stopped rolling and the set fell silent, the story of their clash quietly lingered behind the scenes. Dan Blocker's story shows that even the kindest, most patient people face challenges and conflicts that don't always have neat endings. His life was a balance of warmth, integrity, and quiet strength, both on and off the Bonanza set. The tensions he experienced remind us that respect, gratitude, and teamwork matter just as much as talent or ambition. If you enjoyed learning about the real stories behind Bonanza, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more behind-the-scenes stories about your favorite shows.